Okay, so you've decided to start a podcast. Now what? Running a successful podcast isn't about getting started and then thinking about what to do next. It starts even before you've decided to release your first episode. In today's video, we're going to, we're going to talk about some of the very important things that you need to plan for, that you need to put in place before even launching your podcast. Hi, this is Dilip and welcome to the Podcasting University. I've been a marketer for more than 15 years. I started my first podcast somewhere in 2009 and I used to call it an audio blog. I didn't even know that there was something called as a podcast. So my first official podcast was in 2015. And since then, I've worked on multiple podcasts of my own and of some of my clients. And in this long journey, there is a lot of things that I learned. There are a lot of mistakes that I made, and this channel is all about sharing those learnings that I learned as an affiliate marketer and as a podcaster over my marketing journey of the last 15 years. Starting something like that of a podcast can be a lot of fun, and it can be a lot exciting as well. And it is natural for us to get exciting because after all, podcasting is radio, on-demand radio, and you're going to be on radio. So you have to be excited. But in all of this excitement, what we usually do is we tend to go out there and just get started with things. We just release episodes. We just produce a bunch of episodes, launch it out there, and then we think that we're going to get all of the audience who are going to come and listen to our podcast. After some time, this excitement dies. You'll be faced with a lot of frustration. You will be discouraged because there is not a lot of listenership happening. There is not a lot of audience coming in, multiple problems. And what happens is when this excitement dies, slowly you start to withdraw and you eventually quit. Podcasting needs a lot of planning in order to run a successful podcast, unless you're into it as a time pass. As part of my series on the podcasting basics, today we are going to touch upon 7 such important things that you need to plan for before you actually get started with your podcast. And if you haven't watched part 1 of the series, then I'll link it up here. Go ahead and click that link and watch part 1, which is primarily about some of the basic expectations that you need to set, the right mindset that you need to get started with your podcasting. So let's get started with today's video. Number 1, identifying a niche. Seth Godin had once said, when you talk to everyone, you talk to no one. Identifying a niche is a very important part of marketing. You cannot be marketing if you're planning to sell everything to everybody. I would recommend that you leave that to Amazon. In precisely the same way, if you are a celebrity, then you don't need to look at a niche or a target market or anything. You can just go out there, put anything out there, and there will be people who are willing to listen to you. But if you're not, then you need to start by identifying a niche. Finding a niche will help you attract the right audience to your show who will be able to relate to the content that you are producing and who will also become a fan for your show in the long term. Now, niches can be both broad and narrow. Broad niches are huge. There will be a lot of people in the market, but at the same time, the competition will be extremely high. So what you need to do is narrow in on a niche. Now, an example of a broad niche is like, for example, weight loss. Now, weight loss is a very broad term and there will be a lot of people who are looking for weight loss. So the market is huge. There is a lot of people, but at the same time, there will be a lot of competition that you'll be facing. So in order to ensure that you're getting into a market where there is lesser competition, you narrow down into a niche, like for example, weight loss for moms, which is a narrowed down niche. So your audience will be targeted. You'll be able to generate content that is targeted towards your audience. There will be less competition and you will be able to stand out with your content. Number 2, understanding your target audience and the reasons why they would want to listen to your podcast. Now, this is a mistake that a lot of people do when they get started. They think that they can go out there and put anything and everything that they want to talk about, and audience will come and listen to it. That isn't how it works. People are not interested to listen to what you have to say. They are interested in listening to what they want to hear. They are interested in listening to solutions to problems that they are facing. So, until and unless your content is able to talk to your audience will not be able to relate to it and they wouldn't want to listen to your show. But how would you know what your audience's problem are if you don't even know who your audience is? So, a very important thing before you get started with your podcast is to identify your target persona, your audience persona or your listener profile. Who is your target audience? What are their demographics? What are their psychographics? What are their behavioral patterns? Etc. etc. When you put together these very specific details about your audience, you will also be able to know what their problems are. And when you get to know what their problems are, you will be able to generate content that solves their problems, thereby getting an audience to listen to your podcast. Now, creating an audience persona or an audience profile isn't very difficult. I talk about audience profiles in much detail in episode 35 of the Podcasting University podcast. So I link to it in the description. Go ahead and listen to that episode where you will get to learn a lot more about creating audience profile and also some tips on how to put one together. And do watch the video till the end. Towards the end, I'll give you a very nifty little trick to put together an audience profile. Number 3, deciding on a goal or the objective for your podcast. Now, this is something that a lot of people ignore, primarily because they think that this step is trivial. Now, what is a goal or an objective got to do with podcasting, isn't it? In fact, it has a lot of benefits. You will only realize the importance of putting a goal or an objective in place when you face a challenging situation in podcasting. Now, a goal acts as your North Star. It is your guiding star. It will help you when you feel dejected, down, or frustrated, because that is something that you will come across a lot of times in podcasting. Also, your goal is what will help you put together a marketing strategy, a promotional strategy, and also a content plan for your podcast. So don't ignore this step. Put together maybe in a sentence or two what exactly is the objective that you're planning to achieve with your podcast. Number 4, researching your competition and what is already covered. Do you really think there will be a competition? This is a question that I was asked by somebody that I was on a discovery call with some time back. There will be competition. It is unlikely that any market will be without competition. Your objective is to stand out in that market where there is a competition with your own unique content. And in order for you to position yourself in that competitive market and to know what kind of content to create, you need to research your competition. While it may sound complex, it isn't as complex as it sounds. It's pretty simple. So what I recommend is just go to some of the prominent podcasting platforms and search with your primary keywords, the primary keywords in your niche, and see what are the podcasts that are out there and what are the kind of content that they are generating. That is all that is there to researching your competition. I would recommend Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify because these 3 are the major podcasting platforms where search is a little better. So go ahead and use these platforms. Enter your primary keyword in there, search, and see what podcasts get listed there. Then make a list of all of those podcasts that you see when you search for these keywords. Then go into each of these podcasts and note down these 5 things. 1. Is the podcast still active? 2. What kind of contents have they created? 3. Do they have reviews and ratings and how popular are they? Number 4. What keywords are they actually showing up for? And number 5. What is their show title and description? This information is good enough from a research perspective. While this can take some time, but the effort that you're going to put in is well worth it. Number 5. Planning your content. Now, once you have all of the required information and research in place, it is time to plan your content. Now, this step isn't very difficult if you do it the way I am recommending. Don't overcomplicate it or don't get overwhelmed. Put together a content calendar. You can use a very simple tool like that of Excel spreadsheet, or you can also use something like Notion or Trello, Whatever is your preferred platform, pick that and put together a content calendar. You need to jot down every piece of content that you're going to generate for the next 12 to 14 weeks. Now, this is your starting point. It isn't your ending point. Once you get started, just keep adding to this content calendar, add the content ideas that you're planning to this content calendar and build on what you already have in place. I recommend a very simple method for planning your content. It is putting together content buckets. Now, I primarily have three different content buckets. One is educational content, second is inspirational content, and third one is promotional content. Now, all of the content that I generate falls into each of these three buckets. You can put together content buckets depending upon your content strategy and accordingly put broader topics under each of these buckets and then expand on that. This is a very simple method that a lot of marketers follow. You can also follow it and you will be able to put together a content calendar in no time. Number 6, pick the right format. The previous 5 were comparatively the difficult ones. The next 2 are going to be much simpler. Once you're done with all of the previous 5 steps, it is time for you to pick a format for your show. The 3 prominent formats are interviews, monologues, and dialogues. And there is a 4th format, which is what I recommend, which is a hybrid format. Now, hybrid format can be a mix of interviews and monologues, or monologues and dialogues, or interviews and dialogues, whichever way it is. But I would recommend picking a hybrid format primarily because it gives you much more control over your content and it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of staying consistent. So I would recommend going with a hybrid format. The 7th and the last one, picking the right frequency. Now you might think, what is there to decide on a frequency? I can just go out there and release an episode every week. But keep in mind that this step is a very important step. Because if you don't pick the right frequency to publish your or release your episodes, you might end up with a lot of frustration, demotivation. You will burn yourself out and eventually quit. Now, when I started my podcast, I started with a bi-weekly frequency because I was involved in a lot of things and I couldn't spare the time required to release a weekly episode. So I went with a bi-weekly frequency for my show. Once I was able to put some systems and structures in place and some support, I moved to a weekly frequency. Now, I would recommend that with you as well. Look at your resources, your time constraints, your support structure, and then decide on the right frequency. If you think you'll be able to publish only once a month, go do it. If you think you can go with a bi-weekly frequency, please follow that. But decide a frequency that is comfortable for you. You can always change that once you have your system, structure, and support systems in place. But don't start off with a frequency that you are not comfortable with. So those were the 7 most important things that you need to keep in mind even before you launch your podcast. Now, on to the tip that I spoke about a little while earlier on how to put together an audience profile. Now, follow these very simple steps and you will be able to put together an audience profile for your podcast. 1. Make a list of 30 people that you know, your friends, your family, and your acquaintances. 2. Write down their backgrounds, demographics, or anything that you know about them. Number 3. Reach out to them and check with them if they are willing to listen to a short audio that you will send them and give you the feedback and answer some questions that you would have over a 30-minute phone call. 4. Record an audio along with a trailer. Now, this audio has to be about one problem that you pick for the niche that you are targeting. Record this audio, put together a trailer, and send across this audio and the trailer to the 30 people that you just spoke about. After 4 days, reach out to them and check with them if they have listened to the audio. If they have, check with them when they are comfortable to get on a call with you for about 30 minutes. Talk to these people who listen to the audio and gather their feedback. Ask questions about anything specific that they would have wanted to listen in this audio or anything that they found value in this audio. Jot all of this information down. Make a list of the people who are very closely able to relate to the audio that you sent across and people who asked you some valid questions and gave you some constructive feedback. This is your ideal audience. Take a note of their demographics, their behavioral pattern, and you have your audience profile in place. I hope you liked this video. If you did, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, Click the bell notification so that you're informed when I release my episodes. I release episodes every Thursday, so don't forget to tune in the next Thursday when I'm going to talk about the basic setup, equipments, and everything that you need to get started with your podcast.